Hey guys, I just wanted to come on here and say hello. I've got some crockpot recipes for you in this video, so I hope these give you some ideas for dinner. I know it's summertime right now when I am posting this, and a lot of us are really busy, and we don't really want to be over a hot stove cooking, or if you're anything like me, you don't. So let's break out those crock pots, and I've got some recipes for you. They're super quick and easy, perfect for picky eaters, and hopefully they give you guys some ideas. Hey guys, I've got 4 quick and easy crock pot meals that the whole family will love. This is perfect for picky eaters. If you have those, or if you are one yourself like I am, then these should make everyone happy, and they are so fast. So if you need some dinner ideas for the week, then definitely stay tuned and I'm going to help you out. Okay, so first up, we're gonna do some broccoli cheddar soup. This is kind of a Panera Bread copycat recipe. I just saw it on like a Facebook reel. A friend actually sent it to me, and she didn't really have a recipe, so I'm just gonna kind of go with it. So I'm first taking a bag of broccoli and I'm chopping that up. I don't like the stem of the broccoli or the stalk of the broccoli. I'm a big texture person, so feel free to dice these up as much as you want. If you like them chunky, leave them chunkier. If you like them minced up more, then definitely mince them up more. It's all personal preference. And also I had to slice the onion and it totally made me cry. So let me know your onion slicing hacks in the comments if you have any to prevent that, because it feels horrible. So I'm just slicing up an onion, a white onion, and putting that in there. And then I'm putting about a half a bag of shredded carrots, or if you want an exact measurement, they say to do about 2 cups of shredded carrots. And then I'm doing 3 cups of chicken broth, but for that last cup of chicken broth, I am adding in 1/4 cup of cornstarch. And I had a little freak out moment when I first got the cornstarch in there because it hardened up into a big lump and I thought that I had ruined it, but it all worked out. So you're gonna mix that together and pour that last cup in, and then you're just gonna mix all of those things together really good, get them mixed up, and go ahead and put your lid on. And then you are going to want to cook that on 4 hours on high or 6 hours on low, depending on what your day is looking like, how much time you've got. 4 hours on high, 6 hours on low. And then you're going to come back when you've got about an hour until you want to eat, and you're going to take a 16-ounce block of Velveeta cheese and you're going to just dice that up into small little cubes so that it will melt easier. And you're going to stick that in there with everything else, as well as you're going to add 1 cup of heavy cream in there. And then you're going to mix that together really well. I did forget that you are supposed to season with pepper and garlic in the beginning of the recipe. I did it in the end of the recipe and it worked out totally fine. So it is what it is. You can put them in the beginning, you can put them in the end. I don't think it made a difference. This was amazing. I brought some over to a friend and she said that it was amazing. My husband said it tasted exactly like Panera Bread. I have made this recipe before a little bit differently. Most recipes I have found call for sharp cheddar cheese and not Velveeta, and I'm telling you, the Velveeta makes it. I would not do the sharp cheddar cheese ever again. I would totally do the Velveeta cheese because it's amazing. So you're just going to put the lid back on once you've got that cheese in there and let that melt for at least 20 minutes. But I would say when you have about an hour until you want to eat, to go ahead and do that. And then you are ready to serve. This was amazing. It did make the house stink though. So if you want to try this one, I will write out the instructions in the description box so you can check that out, but it was super simple. I always measure with my heart. I'm very bad at measuring like precisely, so I just kind of threw those seasonings in there with what I thought would be good, and it worked out perfectly, and I recommend to do the same. And yeah, what would you serve this with if you made this? We just had bread, like buttered bread. My husband actually made some sausages to eat with his because he's the type of person that has to have meat with every meal. But I just ate it with a slice of bread and it was so good. I forgot to film a clip of all of the ingredients that go in this one, but today we are making crock pot chicken and dumplings. This one is So easy, and it's such comfort food, and it's also pretty healthy. So I'm going to sneak some vegetables in here. So if you've got little ones that don't like vegetables, maybe you can get them to eat them with this recipe. So I'm just going to salt and pepper my chicken. You can put as much chicken in there as you need to feed your family. 4 is usually plenty for my family of 5. I'm doing salt, pepper, and some garlic powder and some of these minced onions. If you have picky eaters, I love these minced onions. I love the flavor of onions, but I don't like the texture of them. So I tend to cut them up really large if I'm using them in a recipe, or I like to use these that come in the seasoning. So I'm going to put in a cup of, or a can rather, of chicken broth, and then a can of cream of chicken. I like the one that is cream of chicken with herbs. And then I went ahead and threw in another chicken broth. You don't have to do that. You can kind of eyeball it, but I went ahead and did 2 chicken broths, 1 can of cream of chicken, and then I'm just doing a bag of frozen vegetables, and I'm putting that on high for 4 hours because I was pressed for time this day, but you can definitely put this on low for like 8 hours, depending on if you're going to work that day or whatever you have going on that day. Kind of just think about getting that chicken cooked, because that's the main point of the cooking time. So now that my chicken is cooked, I'm going in with 2 forks and just kind of shredding it up. You could take it out at this point and shred it with your mixer, but for this recipe specifically, I kind of like the chicken to be a little bit chunkier. So I'm just kind of breaking it up into larger or smaller chunks. And then now is the time, when you've got about an hour left until you want to eat, that you are going to break out your can of biscuits. I always have the most trouble getting my biscuits open, but I get them, so that's all that matters. So you're going to take a can of biscuits. I've used like the butter tasting ones before. I think this is the home style ones. I don't think it really matters too much, but I'm going to just kind of flatten that down a little bit, and then I'm taking my pizza cutter and just slicing it into 4s, and that's my little dumplings right there. Super quick and easy. All right, and then once you have all your dumplings cut up, you're going to place them in there. You want to be very careful not to overlap or put any on top of the other one. You want to make sure they each have their own little space inside the crock pot. That's the only real trick to this, because otherwise they'll kind of get mashed together, and I like having individual little dumplings. So you're just going to stick those in there, stick the lid back on, cook it for 1 more hour, and then when that hour is up, you're just going to mix it all together. It's going to look like this, and it is so good. Let me know what you would serve this with. Some people have said rice would be really good. Again, this is all I had. We didn't have any sides, and it was perfect, and that's totally fine. But if you would want a side with it, what side would you choose to serve with your chicken and dumplings? Okay, now we're gonna do some Crockpot chili. I love this. This is my chili recipe. Now, this is controversial because some people say this is chili mac, but we call it chili. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is brown your ground beef. Now, this would technically be a dump and go. If you get a leaner meat, you could stick it in there raw and just kind of chop it up, but I had 80-20, so I wanted to cook it up so I could drain the grease. So I've got my ground beef in there. I'm adding in a can of chili beans. We do mild. You can do whatever you prefer. And then this is our favorite tomato sauce because it's not chunky, so I'm just putting in 1 can of that tomato sauce, and then I'm doing a packet of chili seasoning. I like the Chilio brand. I also like, I believe it's the McCormick the McCormick brand. That works well. And then here recently I've discovered that putting chicken broth instead of water, which obviously waters it down, chicken broth is thebomb.com. It makes it taste so good. And when I make this on the pot, which is also super quick and easy to just put in the pot and make on the stove really fast if you want to whip up dinner, I love doing it with the chicken broth because it makes it more soupy. So really this is just preference. If you like your chili to be more soupy, add more chicken broth. I added about 3 cups. If you don't like it to be soupy, then add less, or you can even add none at all. That's totally fine. I did realize that when I made this in the crock pot, I did make a little mistake, so I'm going to point that out in case you don't want to make that mistake. So you see here, it has been on low. You can keep it on warm, honestly, because you're really not cooking it. You're just heating it up. I added in my noodles a little prematurely. I wish I would have waited about, at the very most, an hour before we ate, but I put it in a couple of hours before because we had a dentist appointment. And when I came back, it had soaked up all of that soupiness, and this is what it looked like. Now, it didn't affect the taste. It still tasted amazing, but I prefer mine to be a little bit soupier. So if you do too, then make sure you don't put those noodles in until the very last minute, or they will absorb all of that broth. But we serve ours with cheese and crackers. My husband likes to do peanut butter on his crackers. Let me know what you would serve with your chili. All right, so the next thing is roast. So this is my pot roast. I grew up on this aside from one ingredient. Well, actually, aside from most of these. My mom made it a little different. I've kind of doctored it up over the years and made it the way we like it, but you're just going to get a roast. I prefer a rump roast. This is a chuck roast. It's a little bit fatty, but it is so good and tender. I'm doing a packet of au jus and 1 can of beef broth, and then I'm going to do a packet of brown gravy. And then I'm also going to throw in a packet of ranch. Now, I have played with this over the years, and this is one of my favorite ways to make it. It just is so savory and delicious, and the house smells so good when this is cooking. But I do have a secret ingredient. This is something my father-in-law taught me, and I promise you, you will never have a more tender roast if you don't forget the secret ingredient, and that is Coke. You can also use Pepsi. He used Pepsi. I use either or. I have not noticed a difference, but there is one trick to making this recipe turn out, and that is you have to take a sip of the Coke or Pepsi while you're doing it. That is my favorite part of making this recipe, is I get to sip on the Coke while I'm doing it. So I took a break there for a second and took a sip, but I'm pouring that whole 20-ounce bottle in there. Or is that 16 ounces? I think that's 16 ounces. I'm pouring that whole bottle of Coke in there, and then I'm going to pour in about a half a bag of carrots. Again, this just depends on your family, if you have more people or less people, or you really love carrots, or maybe you don't like them that much. But I poured in about a half a bag of them, and then I also peeled up some russet potatoes and put those. You could also do red potatoes or even yellow potatoes, I suppose, but I usually just use russet potatoes. So I peeled those, rinsed those, and I'm stuck those in there. I did stir it up a little bit, but I leave some of the seasoning on the meat. It's totally fine. And then you're going to put this on the lowest setting for the longest amount of time possible. The longer the time, the more tender the roast. So just remember that. And then the best part of this recipe is the rolls. We eat these. I really should probably make 2 dozen of these because we eat them up and kind of fight over the last one. So I'm just using these little reusable muffin tins. Listen to me. These little muffin cups, and I'm going to stick these frozen rolls in there, and then I just cover them. They need to rise for several hours. So I go ahead and do that when I put the roast in the morning, and that way they are good and thawed out when it's time to bake them. And these are so good. Think like Texas Roadhouse. Not quite as good as Texas Roadhouse, but really close to that. So I like to cover them just so that nothing gets in them during the day, hair or bugs flying around or anything like that. But that plastic wrap does stick to them once they rise like this. So if you have any tips or something that you think would work better to cover them, totally let me know. I would love you forever. So this is about 8 hours later. It is so tender and so juicy and so savory. The flavor is just amazing. I like to kind of cut mine up and mix it together, and I do pepper on it and then serve with those rolls. And this was like my favorite meal growing up. I know for my birthday, my mom would make this meal for me. That's what I would request. It is so good. I hope you guys enjoyed these crockpot meals, and if you make them, definitely let me know in the comments. And if you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.